Okay, welcome everyone to the CounselMore Mentorship meeting. We are so happy to have you all here. My name is Mark Gray. I am your gracious host. This is a CounselMore sponsored event. Come one, come all, whether you're seasoned or a complete and total noob, you are welcome here. It is free. You do not have to be a CounselMore member to even attend. Every month or so, we get together and learn from industry experts in the field. We exchange best practices. If you are looking to learn more about college counseling, how best to add value to your parents and students, or perhaps if you're interested in streamlining or maybe taking the extra step to professionalizing your practice from turning it into a side hustle into a full-fledged household business, this is the place for you, and we're happy you're here. I am going to mute everyone one more time. Judy, I believe, will have the opportunity for us to ask questions at the end. If you have certain questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. Uh, Judy is welcome to change that format up if she wants everyone to mute and sing and dance and ask questions at the same time. Do whatever she says. We're happy to have her here. And speaking of, let me introduce her really quick because she is really cool and we are super happy to have her here. Um, Judith, but to us, it's Judy Bass, is a nationally respected college consultant who specializes in guiding students with ADHD, ASD, and other learning differences through the transition to college. She has over 20 years of experience, is a contributing author on college disability services, and created College WebLD, a major resource for disability support information at more than 400 colleges. She has leadership roles with AICEP and IECA. Consults for independent schools in the Washington, D.C. area, and holds advanced credentials in education and college counseling. And somehow I was able to trick her into coming today, and I am super proud and excited of that fact. So I'm going to shut up and let Judy tell us some really interesting things. So again, I'm going to mute everyone one more time. And so Judy, you'll have to unmute, and then we will turn this over to Judy.
There we go. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for inviting me, Mark. I appreciate the introduction. Today, I want to talk to you about the spectrum of support in colleges. And I'm sure you're going to have a lot of questions, which, as Mark mentioned, please put in the chat. 9 times out of 10, I'm going to answer your question in the presentation a little bit later on, but whatever you're thinking. We do have a very short amount of time, 30 minutes or so, for me to speak. So if I talk too fast, you can let me know. I'm going to try to get through a lot of material. Let me get my screen on there. And I will share my slideshow. Okay. All right. So I want to talk a little bit about the history of working with kids with learning disabilities or any of these learning challenges. In 1979, Adelphi and Curry were the first 2 colleges to support students with just specific learning disabilities. There's a dispute about which one was first, so I just say they both were in 1979. They both claim to be the first. Then 2002, Marshall comes out with an autism support program, the first of its kind. 2003 is when we stopped having the SAT and ACT flagged under special conditions. And of course, that led to a lot of problems with everybody wanting to have an ADHD diagnosis. Then in 2010 to 20, people started to understand ADHD better, and we started getting coaching services. And in the last 5 years, there's been a lot of expansion of that. In 2015 to 2020, we started to see a lot of autism support programs. And you'll see on the chart, next chart, it doubles in number from 36 to 72 very quickly. Post-COVID, we found that more kids needed executive functioning coaching, even if they didn't have diagnosed learning differences, because their parents recognized when they were at home that they weren't getting their work done, and they didn't know why. And today, there are over 100 colleges with autism support programs in 29 states. So it's really developed a lot. And you can see on this chart, okay, oh, I did put in a slide here about what's happening in the government right now, so that people have been very concerned, especially parents, about what's happening with disability services and cuts in funding. The good news is, well, the fact is that everything in the Office of Civil Rights has been cut down. So it's hard for them to address the complaints that they get. But the good news is when you choose the right college for your student who has neurodivergence, you're not going to have complaints. So it kind of works itself out if you're carefully placing that student, and that's what I want to talk about today. You're not going to worry about the disability support not doing what they're supposed to. So it really hasn't changed much. There's no evidence yet of any colleges cutting back on their disability services from what I've heard from learning specialists. So some important considerations to think about. We need to broaden our knowledge as professionals. Many of you find that you have students with learning differences that you didn't know about when they first came to you, or they disclose it later, or it just sort of becomes apparent. When we're looking at colleges, we need to consider the student's academic, emotional, and social needs in selecting colleges. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but it's very important that there's a good overall fit. We always talk about fit for everyone, but for students with different learning styles, it's extremely important that they're in the right place with the right support. This is one of my favorites. We're trying to reconcile her need for independence with our ability to run her life better than she does. Sometimes that means the student isn't ready for college. So as I just mentioned, college readiness involves academic ability, emotional regulation, and social skills. And if you look at this three-legged stool, imagine taking out one leg. What happens? And it doesn't matter which leg. You're not stable. It creates instability. And that's what happens with students who aren't ready for college. If they don't have clear emotional regulation, they don't have the developed social skills, even if they have straight A's, they don't have the skills to live at a college, because there's a lot more that goes on, of course, outside the classroom. And these are the skills that high school students should master before they leave home. Of course, waking up, cooking, and laundry are pretty standard. Money management, a lot of ADHD kids are impulsive. They have to understand that the card really has money on it and it's not, endless. And some of them don't. And almost all of our students take medication. And so we like to really stress to the parents and the student that the student needs to know what medication they're taking and why. It's easier to teach them the name brand of the medication because it's easier to remember. And they need to know why, because oftentimes students who have ADHD decide when they get to college that they don't need to take their medicine anymore. They're okay. Well, if they're taking an antidepressant along with that, they cannot stop that cold turkey. And I did have a student do this several years ago because he didn't know it was an antidepressant. He thought all his meds were for ADHD. So it is very important that they know what they're taking and how much and all of that. Sometimes we find when we're working with our students that they're not ready for college at all, or they're not really college people. They're not going to go to college. And so we like to have alternative paths for them. And we let parents know that it doesn't matter how you get there. The goal is to become an independent young adult and being as independent as possible. So these are some options that you can consider for that. And everyone's familiar with a gap year. And there are transition and internship programs and life skills programs and PG years, which are generally at a boarding school at like a 13th year. And oops. And this is a little chart that I like to show that you can see that not every path is the same. You might have one student who takes a gap year and goes right to college. You might have another student who's in a PG year, then a life skills program, and then they go to college, or maybe they go right to employment. But all of these students are students you're going to see in your office because they don't know that they're not college ready, and their parents don't know they're not college ready. And so we see our job working with this population of educating the families and letting them know what the options are and why it's not a good idea for their child who's very immature to not go to college right away. We don't want to have them devastated and flunk out. And it's better to be able to say no beforehand. So what's really, really important of what I look at is that the entire college campus accepts that everyone learns differently. It's not enough to just have a learning specialist or disabilities director who says, oh, yes, we take this seriously. If the professors aren't also on board, and if the culture of the campus doesn't accept that, a good learning specialist is going to be wear a lot of hats: advocate, educating the faculty, being a resource for the students, maybe even being their executive function coach. And in many cases, they act as a case manager. Students can also get outside support, which is somewhat effective, but it's not the same as being on campus and being part of the community, where parents will always say, oh, they can go to this school, we'll just get outside help. It can work, but it's not going to be ideal. When you visit a college as a consultant, you always need to visit the Office of Accessibility Services. If you're working with neurodiverse students, you need to know that this college has what they need before you even recommend it. What's important to see in a generic sense is, where's the office located? Is it in the middle of campus? Is it way off on the corner at the edge of campus where no one's actually going to go? Does it feel comfortable? Do you think students would enjoy being in this space? And what types of services and accommodations are available? Then you want to see the person who's talking to you. Are they enthusiastic? Are they passionate about helping kids? Do they give you detailed information about all the wonderful things they do? Or do they tell you, we don't really have anything here, it's all on our website? That's a red flag. That means that you basically have ADA compliant accommodations and nothing more. So over the years, as I mentioned earlier, there have been a lot of changes in awareness. And ADHD kids used to drop out of school. Many parents you've heard say, oh, that was me. I had ADHD. I didn't make it. People told them they were lazy and unmotivated. But the missing ingredient was the executive function coaching, which we didn't know about years ago. ADHD students need structure, and having a school with executive function coaches is really, really important. They can offer, the schools sometimes offer one-on-one sessions once a week, and some colleges offer it up to 5 times a week. And one of the coaching companies, JST Coaching, has been going around the country, and Jody Sleeper Triplet is her name, and I'd called her to find out how many colleges and how many people she's gotten to so far. And she said she's counseled and trained over 300 colleges. Now, it's not everybody at the colleges, but 300 colleges, and some people in the colleges are certified EF coaches, and they're working at their college. So it's not like it's hard to find anymore. The other thing to think about with being on the right campus is, if you have a professor who doesn't believe in ADHD, and there still are some, and that professor rolls his eyes every time you ask for extra time, as a student, you're going to stop asking, and you're just going to take the test with everyone else. And that isn't fair, and that shouldn't be the case. But if you're in a college that has good support, you have an advocate. You can go to the learning specialist and tell them what's going on, and they can tell the professor that it's illegal, basically, to ignore that. And the same with autism. There are more and more specific programs, and this is because the diagnosis of autism has become a wider range. We've recognized more people who are on the autism spectrum that you might not even notice, but they have the characteristics, especially girls. They don't get diagnosed as well, but now that we are aware, they're starting to get diagnosed more. And the autistic community is much more active. Many adults belong to organizations where they're very proud of their autism and the way their brains work. So you're going to find a lot more programs. Some of them have low sensory housing. They might have low sensory cafeteria or a safe space. They're going to have all of this social support integrated into their support program. So they'll have the academic accommodations that the other students do, but they also have social support. And the emphasis is on their strengths. What are they good at? What can they do well? And that's true of all students. We want to do that with all students. So I mentioned earlier, this is a chart that shows you that in 2016, there were 36 programs in the whole country. By 2020, there were 72, and only 5 years later, there are over 100 now. So there are over 100 colleges that have specific programs for students with autism. And that really helps open up the field for students to go to a college that they really feel is a good fit for them. So when we talk about the spectrum of support, it's a wide range. And I divide it into two categories. The first is services, where there is no fee. And that's basically ADA compliance, which is the lowest, and then moderate services, which fortunately covers most colleges. And then there are programs which are fee-based, comprehensive support and social support. And some of you may have seen this chart before. I know it's floated around for many years that I created. And it shows you what each category offers. So for example, if you're in an ADA compliant college, there's no professional learning specialist. Most of the time, the dean of students or one of the deans is assigned to be the ADA coordinator. That means they're the ones who give accommodations, and they have no background. They might send it out to a psychologist to look at who's never met the student, but it's very, very low level. So for example, if you need extra time on a test, you would take it in the classroom because they don't have a distraction reduced setting. And then you would follow the professor to his office after the class is over because there are other students coming in. And then the professor has office hours, phones ringing, the doors opening and closing, and people are talking. But you got your extended time, and that's all that's required by law. And fortunately, as I said, most colleges are not in that category. And you can see the moderate category has a lot more of these opportunities. And then here's some colleges that offer moderate, comprehensive, and social support programs. And there are many, but I just picked a few. And you'll notice that some of them are on more than one category. McDaniel's here, and McDaniel just is starting a comprehensive program this fall called Elevate. And so they're on this list also. You're going to see, let's see, what's another one? The Curry College, for example. They have a comprehensive program, and they now have the SAIL program, which is a social support program. Furman, which is a nice, selective school, has a good autism program. And so you can see that if a college has a program, that means they're going to have good support. So even if your student doesn't need the program, knowing that it's there means that the support they need will be there. Comprehensive support programs. These are fee-based, as I mentioned. And I usually tell parents that think about all the tutoring you do throughout the year, add it up, and that's what you basically pay in the beginning of the semester. Sometimes it's more expensive. Some programs are way overpriced, but generally they're reasonable. And they have a full-time director with a background in learning support, and they have several staff members who also have advanced degrees. They limit the enrollment so that they can make sure that they have the right ratio between student and professor or student and learning specialist. And they might advocate on behalf of the student. So if the student is struggling, they might have a meeting with the student and the teacher to go over whatever it is that the student needs to work on. And they teach them advocacy. They might role play with them first and say, you try and go talk to this professor about your accommodations. And let's role play first. And you go ahead. And if it doesn't work, we'll try another way. Maybe I can come with you. And they usually have a separate application. Now, some colleges, you apply at the same time that you're applying to the college. Other colleges have you wait until you've been accepted to apply. And then there are some in between that are whenever you can apply at any time. We don't usually fill up, we have enough space. The problem you run into with the colleges that wait until you've been accepted is that you don't know if that's the right school for you. So, oh, I'm sorry, not just when you're accepted. There are colleges that may wait until you deposit before they'll let you know if you've gotten in. So you would apply when you got accepted, but you wouldn't find out until you've deposited. So it puts parents in an awkward position because if the program's not going to be there for them, then they're not going to that school. So, it's a difficult situation, but hopefully that doesn't happen too often. There are some strategies that parents can do and that we talk to them about to see if you can circumvent that. And then the social support, it's a separate program for students not only with autism, because autism spectrum disorder is a broad range now, social communication disorder, pervasive developmental disorder. There's a bunch of terms that are all under the ASD umbrella. And you might find a student or a parent that says, my son does not have autism. And then you read through their neuropsych report and you see that they have all the characteristics of autism, but it's called a social pragmatics disorder or a social communications disorder. Those are still the same thing. And sometimes it's the parent who doesn't want the autism listed, and sometimes the psychologist doesn't see it. And so those things can occur, but the program is still good for that student. The social support that they offer is very different than you would get in high school. For example, they're going to say, we're all going bowling on Friday night, or we're all going to the school play. If you'd like to come, meet us at 6 o'clock right here in our office, and we'll all go together. That works for a student who's too shy to ask someone else to go somewhere. But if they know there's a group somewhere, they'll join the group because that's already established. The learning specialists act as case managers. They really facilitate all of the needs of the student. They'll set them up with a peer mentor. They'll make sure that they're going to class, that they're involved in some activities, and they make sure that the student is functioning outside the classroom as well as inside. Some offer separate housing. Mercyhurst is one example. They have a separate dorm for students with autism. And what they do is they have a suite style where it's 4 to 6 rooms. Each student has their own room, but it opens to a common living room. That way they can have their privacy, which they need, but they also can come out and have a group of people to talk to. They also offer a low sensory cafeteria, study rooms, and single rooms if students want that in the regular population. Many of them have specialized summer orientation programs. They might have an orientation early, so the students come into the school and get into their dorms early. Or they might have a whole week program where they teach them about everything on the school campus, how to use the swipe cards, how to go to the library, where the post office is, and helping them really acclimate before the rest of the campus arrives. And they get executive function coaching 3 to 5 times a week is pretty standard, so that they're really getting a comprehensive support. Remember that students are only in class 12 to 15 hours a week. The rest of their time is unstructured. So for the ADHD and autistic students, that's really dangerous because they don't know how to structure their time. And that's where the coaching comes in, can really help. What I'd like to do is go through a couple of case studies, depending on how much time we have. I'd like you to read this and then put in the chat. And Mark, I hope you can kind of read the chat. Tell me which you think is the category that they should be in. I'm going to raise this up a little bit. Whoops. Number 1. So I'll give you a minute to read it. And then when you think you know, put the answer in the chat, A, B, C, or D. Mark, you starting to get responses? Oh, here they come. Okay. Do you have a consensus yet? What's the majority?
Looks like it's D.
D.
A,
That's right.
a couple
That's
people
perfect.
pick C and a couple people pick B.
Okay, so the reason D is the correct answer is if you look carefully, this is a girl. If you know autism, this is a girl with autism. If you're not familiar with it, her voice is robotic. She might talk too loud. She's extremely intelligent. She spends time with adults rather than children. And none of her friends are interested in her latest network security computer project. But students with autism can speak very well to adults at their level because their area of interest, they know everything. So that would, and the fact that she has no friends and spends her time at home with her parents means she probably needs that extra social support. Yes, the comprehensive support program will help her, but more so, she needs the social support. All right, let's do one more. Actually, I should probably read it because I realize it's being recorded. Stephen is a high school junior who had academically disastrous years in ninth and 10th grade. He was diagnosed in the middle of 11th grade with ADHD inattentive type, and after learning some strategies and starting on medication to help him focus, the quality of Stephen's work began to improve. His GPA at the end of 11th grade was a 3.0. Stephen continued on this path throughout his senior year and slowly began to learn better study habits. He still needed some support and encouragement, but he was developing the skills he needed for college. What are you getting, Mark?
Most people pick B with C as the runner-up. And
Okay, this is a trick question. I would recommend C, a comprehensive support program, because he just started gaining these skills. He hasn't done it enough to really have it under his belt. So it's always better to start out with more support. And then if he doesn't need it the next semester or the next year, he can drop down. But it's a lot harder to start with services and then go into a program. So looking carefully, he continued on this path and slowly began to learn better study habits, still needed some support and encouragement. And he's still developing the skills. We want them to have the skills when they get to the support services because they have to advocate for themselves. Do we have time for one more? Okay, great. Here's one more. Deja had struggled with dyscalculia all through school. She never learned her math facts and could not work through multi-step problems without a lot of effort. Deja does very well in all other subjects, including French. She advocates for herself in math and always reminds the teacher that she's allowed to break up her test into 2 sittings. Deja is an independent learner and does not typically use any assistance. What do you have for this one, Mark?
This one's looking like a mixed bag. Uh, Lots of A's, lots of B's. There might be a little more B than
Okay.
A, but it's pretty divided equally.
Okay, great. The answer is B.
Okay.
Just because she doesn't use the support doesn't mean she's not going to need it at some point. So if you go to a school that doesn't have any support and then she suddenly needs it, where is she going to go? She is an independent learner. She doesn't typically use any assistance, but she does have problems with math. So she might need to go to a support services to get some accommodations for her math, and that might not be available in an ADA compliant school. So the bottom line is ADA compliant schools typically don't work at all for anybody who needs support. All right, we'll go through the last two. I'll skip those, just a few more things. These are some sample accommodations that you don't normally find in high school, so parents don't think about them. Anonymous note takers. There are note takers where they give you carbon copy paper and someone copies the notes for you and gives them to you. That's not an accommodation. Anonymous note takers send them to either online or by hand into the learning center, and another student picks them up without knowing who's who. Priority registration. A lot of ADHD students can't get up in the morning, and maybe they need to have late class starts, or students with dyslexia shouldn't have too many heavy reading classes. Foreign language is another one, substitution, the housing, single room, and audiobooks are some of the others. So, who can tell me how many colleges are exclusively for students who learn differently? Put your answer in the chat. What number do you think? Do you have a consensus yet?
Um, some twos, 2 to 3, 4, 2 to 3, 4, 2, 2.
Okay, they're all pretty low though. That's good.
Yeah.
Okay, the answer is 2. Beacon College in Leesburg, Florida, Landmark College in Putney, Vermont. The thing that you need to know is that every college in the country offers some support. By law, they have to. But no college, other than these two, have more than 30% of their students using services because that's the general population. Typically, 30% register, but maybe only about 20% actually use it. But it's never more than that. So every other college is a regular college. So when parents come to me and say, we don't want our student to go to any all LD colleges, I can say, good, that eliminates 2. And they really don't get it, but that's the case. Okay. Just wanted to let you know that I do trainings for IECs. So if you are interested in learning more, I do an 8-week class, 90 minutes a week, drop-in hours every week, and I offer it about 3 times a year. So if you're interested, I'm going to put the link in the chat. I mean, whoops, let me go back that one. And if anybody's interested, just to be on our wait list to get information, it's not letting me do it. Oh, because it's in. I got.
Judy, I'll get it for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll let you get it. I'll go back to my.
Yeah, give me a second and I can put it in there.
Okay, thank you. So I will wait until I have enough students. Usually I like to have at least 4 or 5. So if you get on the wait list and we get to that number, then we'll be in touch and let you know, and you're welcome to join the class.
Okay, guys, I'm putting it in the chat in just a second.
Great.
All right, it's in.
Great. All right, so thank you all. I'd love to take your questions, any that you have before on chat or any now.
If you don't mind, we've got quite a few people today. Uh, if you can uh use the emojis or the reactions to raise your hand, that would be swell. And then and then I and then we can call on you. And
Um,
I'm
oh, go ahead.
hoping no one has any because I have 1,000.
Okay.
But if you do, please, you guys come first.
All right, go ahead and start asking the questions, Mark. And if someone raises their hand, we'll stop.
Cool. And you can also feel free to put them in the chat. Okay, so Margaret, if a student is undiagnosed and in college, how can they access services without diagnosis?
Good question. If they believe they have a diagnosis, then they can go to the office and they will either test them there at some schools or they'll recommend local testing. And the student can get the testing, and as long as they have that diagnosis, they can get the accommodations.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Ivy, your hand is up.
Hi, friends. I have for years been using the K&W guide. I think it's by Peterson's for
Mhm.
learning differences, and it does a pretty good job of talking about it. But I'm not sure how updated a version is. Does anybody use that and see any validity in it?
It's good. Amy Wax and Mary Beth Kravitz have been putting it together for many, many years. I believe it's a year or two to maybe 3 years, and they
Yeah,
update it periodically. It is a starting point. They just have structured support program and some basic information. Um, it's a good starting point, but you should still be talking to the Director of Disability Services to ask more questions.
great, because there's not another resource like it that that you would refer us to, right?
Um, at this point, no, there
Okay.
isn't.
Did I hear? Sounds like you're writing a book, Judy. Is that what I kind of inferred from that? I'm teasing. I
No,
wouldn't put that on you.
I had a website that called College Web LD. Some people have used it. We're looking to see what we can do to regenerate it. But at this point, it had 400 colleges and all the information on it, but it is not functioning right now. So we're hoping to revive it in some form at some point because a website will be much better than a book.
Got it. Uh, so quick question. You mentioned several times in, you've got a student who just isn't ready for college,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
I'm interested in like it's kind of a two-parter, and if we don't have time to answer both. So one, how do you how do you like kind of tell?
Mhm.
And then two, how on earth do you tell that to the parents, right?
Okay, great questions. First of all, the way you tell is that every time you give them an assignment, they come back with an excuse. And they can't get their work done without somebody sitting with them. We end up doing a lot of work with our students. We do a lot of appointments with them where we're not doing anything but just sitting there and making sure they're doing the work that we ask them to do. Another way is
I
when
feel so seen right now.
you
Please continue anyway.
The other way is seeing that their grades are all over the place. They get great grades in classes where they like the teacher and the subject. They get poor grades when they're not interested. So often it can be an ADHD issue. It can also be immaturity. You see a student who ADHD students, for example, are 3 to 5 years behind in social development. So you wouldn't send your 15-year-old off to college. But that's essentially what parents are doing when their kids are not ready. The second piece is the way that I introduce it is from the very beginning. When I start working with a family, I take a while to get to the college list because we do assessments and we get to know them a little bit, and then we give the list. And when we do, before we give the list, we say, I'm seeing some signs that your son might not be ready for college next year. So I'm going to put some gap year programs on here as well. Doesn't mean he has to go to them, but I just want that to be part of the mix of options. And that way you can start visiting them along with the colleges. And if in the end he's not ready, he has options. So none of it feels like a punishment or setback. Some parents will say, oh, no, our student doesn't need that. And if anybody wants to know, I will talk to you afterwards because I have a lot of answers to the objections.
Okay, do we have any more questions? I'm not seeing any.
So can I just mention that Peterson's data is already in your CounselMore data. So if you want to pull that forward, but Judy and I just met yesterday for another reason, and we were looking at that data, and Judy has much deeper data. So that Peterson's is pretty surface. Just want to mention.
Okay. Um, thank you, Margaret. I'm not seeing any other questions. And so as the host of this meeting, I will use my privileges to ask one more.
Okay.
So I don't know if anyone else does this, but I have some students that I just have a real soft spot for, and I work well with them. And we do have another question, so I'll hurry. Uh, but some of the parents will be like, "Hey, can you just sort of keep an eye on them while they're in college? Can you just kind of like check in with them once a week? We'll pay you something to do that, right?" So I have three students I do that with.
Mhm.
I don't have your training or expertise with all that, but what's something a run-of-the-mill IEC can do where our training and expertise like are, able to kind of help manage and mitigate some of that. Am I making
Sure.
sense?
Yes, absolutely. I check in with my students once a semester for the first year. I always let them know if there's any problem that they have through the Learning Center or anything to do with their disabilities or accommodations, I can help them solve that problem. I can't do anything academically, but I can certainly help if they're not getting their needs met that way. But what I do is I recommend to the family before college that they start working with an executive function coach. Now,
Mm-hmm.
we have many coaches and they all work online with students virtually. So if they start with the student before college and they go with the student to college, it's a seamless transition. And they're doing that job rather than you of checking in weekly to make sure they're staying on top of their work. And they have the skills to help them figure out how to manage that.
Sure. Gotcha. Makes sense. So essentially, if I wanted to continue doing that, I would need to look into like supplementing like not just checking in and making sure they're doing their work, but like really train them on executive functioning stuff or be
Yeah,
okay with referring them to someone who is
exactly. I
more
mean, you
trained in
can
that.
still check in a general sense because I do that.
Sure.
But if what their parents are really saying is check in on them, I want to make sure they're getting the work done.
Hmm.
It's really hard for them to tell you, oh no, I'm missing this assignment, that assignment, this assignment. And then what are you going to do about it?
Yeah, I make them share their screen. I'm like, show me your grades. Uh, oh, okay, I see
All
you.
right.
You have three
Robin,
zeros, you know.
just, yeah.
But yeah, we're behind on questions. Sorry, I'm
Oh,
being
that's
selfish.
okay. No, it's fine.
We've got first Adrian had a question.
Yes, I was just wondering if colleges track the success of their programs, meaning are they getting better graduation rates for students using the services, or is there somewhere, because I have been asked this question about, well, how do I know it's a good program?
Mhm.
Like, what's the success of the students? And every student's journey is so different that, did they actually go to the office and use the services, for instance? So
Exactly.
anyway, I was just wondering if if
Mhm.
colleges are tracking that, and if so, how to get that information.
Some colleges that offer excellent support services do track. Curry College, Dean College, trying to think of some others. Those just pop into my head. They track them because they're proud of them. And they say, for example, Dean says we have a 90% retention rate between first and second semester of our students who are using our program. So that says a lot. But I can say that in general, the statistics are similar, if not better, than the general population. There's no real tangible way to know that other than asking the program.
Okay, thank you.
I think Robin had a good question about executive function coaches, a list of them. We have many coaches on our staff, and they all have different personalities and they all work with different populations. So you're welcome to give us a call if you're looking to have some specific coaches.
Okay. Well, guys, that is
Oh, our contact info. That's what you're asking. Okay. I will share my screen one more time. And it's all right here.
okay. You heard it from Judy herself, folks.
Can I ask one last question?
Mhm.
If a college counselor already has a student who I'm fully working with, do you
Mhm.
partner with
Yes.
other? Oh, okay, great.
I do. I partner with other consultants. I will either be in the background and help you personally, and then you work with the client, or I can be a co-consultant. And the fee I charge is minimal, but it's based on how much I'm actually doing.
All right. Talking about these things with parents is sensitive, so having your guidance would be great.
Yes, it's difficult. It's difficult for me too. So don't feel like it's never easy.
Well, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree usually.
Exactly, right.
So I am finding an undiagnosed parent and an undiagnosed student.
Yes.
And then the student is just being told you're not focusing or concentrating or working hard enough.
Mhm.
And I can see that they're really trying to do all they can.
I tell parents that the word lazy is not allowed in my office. Nobody is lazy. Nobody gets up in the morning and says, I think I want to fail today. Everybody wants to do well. And so when I put it that way to the parent, say he can't, he's not able to, something is getting in the way. And that's the fact that he doesn't have structure. And I might explain executive functioning to them and tell them what this means and what are the symptoms. And they'll say, oh yeah, that's what he does. So helping them understand why it is rather than just stop getting mad at him because you're doing the same thing to the parent.
Judy, thank you so much for distilling all these resources into your presentation. Yeah, I'd say about half of my students have some kind of learning differences or challenge, and so I think this is really relevant. Back in my day, you just had to study harder or,
Mhm.
you know, or your doctor upped your meds as someone who's been, managing ADHD their whole life. So we just really appreciate you coming. Uh, uh, I believe this is I think in one of our like top 3 like most attended events for this particular meeting. So we may be bothering you to come back, and I hope that's okay. You can
I
always
don't
say
mind.
no, but you will be bothered.
I
Uh,
would be happy to.
Cool. Well, everyone, thank you so much for coming again. This is the CounselMore Mentorship Circle. Yeah, bless you all for coming, and we'll see you next time.
Excuse me. Thank you.
Take care, everyone.